Hello class, today we're going to be going over lesson 4.5, how to factor expressions. So for start off, we need some definitions. So the first definition we have is that of factoring. So factoring is the opposite of distributing, and instead of putting expressions together, we're pulling them apart. So let's remember, with the distributive property, we did a times b plus c, and we multiplied the a times the b and the c, which gave us ab plus AC. So this time we're just going other direction. Instead of multiplying what's outside the parentheses in, we're going to be dividing by the greatest common factor. So what is the greatest common factor? The greatest common factor, or the GCF, is the largest number we can divide two or more numbers by and still get an integer. So this is hopefully something that's familiar to all of you, the GCF, but we're going to be using it a lot today, so let's start with a refresher of it. So we want to find the GCF of the following numbers. So we'll start off with 3 and 6. The 3 and 6 are a pretty simple one, right? Because what's the largest number that divides 3? Well, it's 3, obviously. It's itself. Now, can 3 divide 6? Yes, it can. So that automatically would make our GCF of 3 and 6 3. Now, how about 12 and 24? Well, let's make a tree diagram for this one so that way we can see it a little easier. So what two numbers divide 12 here? Well, there's a bunch of them, but let's start with 6 and 2. Now, 6 can also be divided by 3 and 2, so we'll break it down there. Now, what can 24 be divided by? Well, 24 can be divided by 12 and 2, and then 12 can be divided by 6 and 2. 6 can be divided by 3 and 2. So what's the greatest common number these two tree diagrams share? Well, it's 6, right? You can see that right here. The greatest common number that these two is 6. Oh, no, it's not. I'm crazy. Sorry. Greatest common factor that these two share is 12, and if we look over here, we see a 12, because 24 divided by 12 is 2. We also see a 12 originally, and obviously 12 divided by 12 is 1. So our GCF of 12 and 24 is 12. Now let's look at 135. All right, so start with 100. 100 is divisible by 20 and 5. 20 is divisible by 5 and 4. And 4 is divisible by 2 and 2. Now 35. 35 is divisible by 7 and 5, and that's it. 7 and 5 are the only two numbers that divide into 35. So what's the largest number that both of these share? Well, it's indeed 5. We could circle 5 here, right? So 5 is the greatest common factor of 135. All right, now 18 and 27. All right. So 18 divisible by 9 and 2. 9 is divisible by 3 and 3. 27 divisible by 9 and 3. And 9 is obviously 3 and 3. So clearly we can see here that 9 is the greatest common factor between the two of these, right? So our GCF is 9. Now let's look at our last one here, -3 and 9. Now this one's a little bit confusing because we have multiple GCFs, kind of. And you guys will see what I'm talking about. So, -3 and 9. Well, -3 is divisible by -3 and 1, but it's also divisible by 3 and -1, right? Because 3 times -1 is -3, and also -3 times 1 is 3. Is -3. That's because we have a negative sign there. So 9 is divisible by 3 and 3, but 9 is also divisible by -3 and -3. So that means our GCF here is -3, because we could match these up here, and also 3. Now, if we're going off the term greatest common factor, it's obviously going to be the larger one, right? So it would normally be 3, but in our factoring exercises, you're going to have to pull out negatives and positives. So I'm going to list my GCF here as -3 and 3. All right, next we want to factor the expression 12x plus 10. First thing we're going to do is we're going to find the GCF of 12 and 10. Well, 12 and 10, we'll write this over here. 12 divisible by 6 and 2. 6 divisible by 3 and 2. Now 10 is divisible by 5 and 2 only. Now, which ones do these two share? Well, we have a 2 here and a 2 here. So that means the GCF is going to be 2. Now we divide 12 and 10 by the GCF. So 12 divided by 2 is equal to 6, and 10 divided by 2 is equal to 5. So there's our 2 divisions there. Now we want to rewrite the expression after factoring. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to put our GCF on the outside of our parentheses, and then we're going to divide our 2 terms inside by the GCF. So 12x divided by 2, we already said that would be 6x. And then 10 divided by 2 is 5. So now we have 2 ways we could check this expression to make sure it's correct. The first thing is to make sure that our 2 expressions inside do not share a common factor. So obviously we can see 6x and 5 are in their most simple forms. We cannot divide those anymore, so we're good there. The next thing we could do is we could distribute that 2 to just double check and make sure it matches our original expression. So 2 times 6x is equal to 12x, and 2 times 5 is equal to 10. So if we distribute the 2, we would get 12x plus 10, and that matches our original expression. So we know this is correct. All right, let's get on to our next question here. So we want to factor the expression 16a plus 10. Again, we're going to start off by finding our GCFs. So 16a and 10. 16 is divisible by 8 and 2. 10 is divisible by 5 and 2. And 8 is 4 and 2, and 4 is 2 and 2. So clearly the largest number shared here is 2. So we're going to write that outside of our parentheses. Now, 16a divided by 2 would be 8a. 10 divided by 2 would be 5. So we would get 2 times 8a plus 5. Now let's just double check. Is there anything else we could factor out? Well, nope. 8 and 5 do not share common factors. Now let's distribute our 2 to make sure we did this correctly. 2 times 8a is 16a, and 2 times 5 is 10. So our answer here does match our original answer, so that means we have done this correctly. All right, another one here. Factor the expression negative 9y minus 3. All right, so we need our GCFs of negative 9 and negative 3. All right, so negative 9 can break down into negative 3 and 3. And negative 3 can break down to negative 3 and 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to factor out this negative 3. All right, so I'm going to put that outside the parentheses. And we'll divide negative 9y by negative 3. All right, so this is a negative divided by negative, so let's make sure that this is a positive 3y. Now, negative 3 divided by negative 3, that's going to give us a positive 1. So we got our expression here. Let's double check it. Negative 3 times 3y plus 1. We'll distribute that negative 3. So we get negative 3 times 3y, which will give us negative 9y. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. This does indeed match our original expression right here. So we are good. Negative 9y minus 3 factored would give us negative 3 times 3y plus 1. All right, next we want to find the area of this rectangle, or rather it's given us the area of the rectangle, and we want to find the possible combinations. So this rectangle has an area of 240 minus 400x feet. What is one possible combination of the dimensions of the box? All right, so 2 things I'm reading from this, right? First thing is it's asking us for the area, and area is length times width. So we need to know that right off the bat. Next thing is it's asking for one possible combination, right? So we don't need to give it all the combinations, just one possible one. Okay. So label our box here. We have a length times a width. So 240 minus 400x is equal to length times width. Now I'm going to solve this by factoring here. So that way I can get a number multiplied by another number. So since it's only asking for one possible combination, we don't have to find the GCF of these two. We just have to find a number that divides both of them. So obviously both of these are even numbers, so I can take a 2 out of them. So 2, and then 140 divided by 2 would be 120. 400 divided by 2 would be 200. So I would get a 2 times a 120 minus 200x. Now remember, we said this is equal to the length times the width. So I'm going to let the length equal 2 and the width equal 120 minus 200x. So these are our dimensions of the box. All right, so let's just have a little quick conclusion here. So today we learned about our GCF, or our greatest common factor, and that is the largest number that we can divide two or more numbers by. And finally, we learned about factoring, and factoring is the opposite of distributing. So we're basically taking our numbers and pulling them out of our two equations and putting it on the outside of the parentheses. And normally the number we are pulling out, like 99 out of 100 times, is the greatest common factor. Alrighty, class, I will see you all tomorrow. Don't forget to fill out the 4 questions along with this form. Have a good rest of your day, everybody. Bye-bye.